There's been rumors going around on the web that the Switch 2 is supposed to be released sometime during the second quarter of 2025. And there's also been talk of the Switch 2 possibly being priced around $500 during its launch. And that is something that, on one hand, makes sense. But on the other hand, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are not necessarily happy about that because the cost of gaming is expensive enough as it is. And I feel like one of the reasons why the Switch console sold as much as it did is because of its price. You look at the price of the Switch console, which came out back in 2017. It's fairly it's pretty fair compared to what we got for the PlayStation 4 when it first came out, or the PlayStation 5 when it first came out, especially the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. The release prices for those were absolutely ridiculous. And like I can't even remember off the top of my head like what the price was. I think it was somewhere around the ballpark of like $500 or something like that. But but here's the thing I don't quite understand. The Switch 2 is not going to be as powerful as the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X, but it seems like Nintendo is going for a similar price tag. And honestly, like considering how successful the Switch console was, I kind of get it. Considering the fact that Switch 2 is going to be stronger than the base PlayStation 4, I get it. But at the same time, Nintendo is still a step behind, Sony and Microsoft in relation to quality as it concerns like graphics and all that stuff. But the thing is, it seems like Microsoft might be I wouldn't say they're like, distancing themselves away from gaming altogether, but it doesn't seem like, Microsoft or Xbox going to be putting out any more consoles, any more hardware consoles, anyways. And if that is the case, that leaves both Sony and Nintendo as the main entities within the gaming industry that puts out consoles. And if that's the case, then I guess, Nintendo is in a position where they can jack up the prices of their consoles and stuff like that and get away with it. And I want to believe that the reason why the Switch console was as cheap as it was when it came out was because it was competing with the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 when it was released. And at this point, I believe the Nintendo Switch had surpassed the PlayStation 4 in terms of overall sales just recently, because I think the Switch console has done somewhere around the ballpark of like 143 mil, while the PlayStation 4 is like at 117 mil. And you look at like the last couple of Nintendo consoles that came out, like the Wii U, the Wii, and the Switch console. They've all been priced like under $400, but despite that, the Wii U ended up being a flop because there wasn't really enough like big games um, that ended up helping with the overall profit of the console or anything like that. It didn't draw enough interest among casuals. Plus, it was backwards compatible with Wii games, and if that was the case, it's like what, whatever. But if Nintendo decides to ditch backwards compatibility with the Switch 2, it's quite possible they'll do better. But then again, I mean, it didn't work for Nintendo back in like the early 2000s when they ditched that with the GameCube console. So honestly, like nothing is necessarily promised with the Switch 2 in terms of success. I think it all depends on what main titles are going to be featured on the Switch 2. We know Metroid Prime 4 Echoes is going to be on the Switch 2 eventually. And, Mario Kart 9 is going to be on Switch 2 eventually whenever it's announced and whenever it's released, which I don't think is going to be anytime soon. But yeah, Switch 2 being priced around $500. On one hand, it seems ludicrous, but on the other hand, um, again, Nintendo's trying to make as much money as they possibly can, and hopefully they got some high profile titles lined up for their fans to purchase for that console, because if not, I feel like the Switch 2 is just going to end up like the Wii U for the most part, but more expensive. And honestly, Nintendo shouldn't have to, suffer a fate like that again. But yeah, I mean, like, I can't think of too many games I'm looking forward to seeing on the Switch too. Hopefully, we'll learn more about what games to expect for that particular console in relation to 2025 and 2026.